The Reytons are a South Yorkshire indie rock band formed around 2017 in Rotherham. The band was formed by Johnny Yerrill, Joe O'Brien, Lee Holland and Jamie Todd. Before putting together their first full-length album, they released several EPs, including Alcopops and Charity Shops. Kids of the estate. It was all so monotonous and may seriously harm you and others around you. It was really Alcopops that drove Reytons to success, accumulating hundreds of thousands of streams online. With those streams came adoration, excitement, and one rather self-evident criticism, namely that they sound exactly like Arctic Monkeys. And when I say Arctic Monkeys here, I mean specifically Arctic Monkeys' first album, Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not. Whilst some fans were invigorated by the return of a sound they loved, critics in journalism and online comments blasted the music as derivative and basically a complete rip-off. This Arctic Monkeys comparison came as a double-edged sword to the Reytons. On the one hand, it could be interpreted positively that they're effectively the new Arctic Monkeys, bringing back the energy and riffage that had made early Arctic Monkeys so popular. On the other hand, with a negative interpretation, they could be criticized as unoriginal, a rehash of sounds from the mid-2000s that were innovative at the time, but come off as aged in the 2020s. Particularly from a 40-year-old man, Johnny Yerrill. I'd like to address the age criticism first and foremost, as I believe it to be perhaps the least valid criticism levied at the Reytons. Yes, they were in their mid-30s when they formed the band. Yes, they're now 40. So what? It's perhaps one of the most anti-creativity stances that somebody could take to limit the sort of music people are allowed to put out based on their age. I will always advocate for a pro-creativity stance on this. The age of the writer doesn't matter. What matters is the quality of the songwriting. If these guys are putting out quality stuff that the audience can bop to, their age doesn't matter. Now granted, it can put people off that the writing doesn't always come off as mature, but mature writing isn't what matters in this scene. It's whether or not you get the people going. The far more valid criticism of the Reytons is indeed the lack of originality, which is nowhere more evident than in their song titled On the Back Burner, the riff of which is almost a beat-for-beat, note-for-note copy of the riff from the bridge of You Probably Couldn't See for the Lights on the first Arctic Monkeys album. This is perhaps the most egregious example of a blatant rip-off that the Reytons have engaged in, and during the lyrics of the song, Johnny Yerrill seems to nod and wink at the derivativeness. With the lyrics, everybody round here's got a cousin or a mate who's best friends with Alex Turner, I'm telling you.
Don't believe the hype.
In a way, this was a clever move. It was at least lyrically self-aware. However, it didn't appear to endear the music to the comment section, who were hyper-focused on the similarity, with one commenter offering a rather balanced take, acknowledging the similarities and not taking any of it too seriously. A common criticism was also that the song was cringe, and to be fair, they did start the song with the line, "All Reet, have you seen those lads? There's a brand new band in town." I don't know if we have any songwriters in the audience, but that is really, it reeks of the 2005 emo scene of making songs about being a new band, but without the somewhat charming self-pity to pull it off. As well, the song is melodically repugnant. The lyricism in pretty much all of the Reytons songs doesn't even come close to Alex Turner's lyricism. I don't know if you can tell, I don't like it at all, and to be honest, if that was the peak of the Reytons' quality in terms of their music, this would be a far more scathing video. Thankfully, it wasn't. So, what redeems the Reytons? 2 words. Red Smoke. Red Smoke is an example of Reytons stepping out of a cold, capuchin-shaped shadow. The riff harkens back to those early Monkey days, but deviates enough to sound genuinely new. The lyrics read as a call to arms for pyromaniacs, and given the tendency for Reytons gigs to be swarmed in red smoke, I'd say they heard the call. Not to mention this absolutely beast line, "There's a wave coming in the name of a f***ing revenant." That is how it's done. It also wasn't their only saving grace. The song Cash in Hand and Fake IDs does a lot for the band as well. Whilst the verses might lean into corny romanticized youth tropes, such as the song's namesake, the hook is genuinely powerful. I think this song is best pictured as being written from the perspective of a father, seeing his young son make the same mistakes he did. That's how I envision the whole, "Don't get your hopes up, son. It's not likely that she'll stay. I never want to see you fail." To me, that 100% sounds like fatherly advice regarding heartbreak. It leans into a melodic side to the Reytons, which, to be honest, I think is where they start to actually show their strength. It's not just the bigger songs either. Their song 2006 from their 2024 album titled Ballad of a Bystander, is somewhere between the Streets and Arctic Monkeys in its appeal, with local Yorkshire references, even if the concept of the difference between learning lines and doing lines is once again harkening back to one of the more iconic early Arctic Monkeys songs. As much as the Reytons have historically worn their Arctic Monkeys influence proudly, I truly believe they show some genuine promise when they're willing to shed the simian skin suit a little. Another example of this would be their song Shoebox, which in some ways sounds a little more Catfish and the Bottlemen. Now, I know what you're probably thinking here. I've just used a song where they sound derivative of a different band as an example of their strengths. By this logic, it almost sounds like the Reytons bring nothing original to the table. But my thoughts on this are a little different. Within the context of British rock bands, being a bit of a copycat hasn't always been a bad thing. The obvious example being Oasis, where chief songwriter Noel Gallagher has openly, and with a tone of sheer audacity, claimed to have ripped off many great artists and bands before him, truly standing on the shoulders of giants. This is somewhat alright, as long as you're bringing quality songs along with it, and for the Reytons at the moment, this is very hit and miss. As time goes on, and the band has grown, it's been more hit than miss. If I had to give any personal advice to the Reytons, I would suggest they take influence from music outside of their genre, taking foreign ideas and bringing them home. I think some out-of-the-box thinking is really necessary for the future of a band that has so far been very much in the box. However, the local influence that they've had cannot be questioned. I encourage everyone to go and watch some of the clips from their performance at Clifton Park. For South Yorkshire at the moment, it would appear that they've become emblematic of a regional pride in music that hasn't been felt since early Arctic Monkeys days, and that's not an insignificant thing. If you think how many bands since Arctic Monkeys have tried and not reached the level that Reytons have, it's seriously impressive. Whilst I find the song Kids Off the Estate to again be rather corny, I still get goosebumps watching back their performance at Clifton Park with the crowd singing every word. The "They Called Us Reytons" bar is a hell of a moment. The final point I'll jump on is the vocals. Johnny's voice is indeed similar to Alex Turner's at that time. I'll make a couple points on this. First off, they're from the same area. This may come as a shock to a lot of international listeners, but not everybody from the north of England who sings like that is strictly doing an imitation of Alex Turner. People literally talk like that and thusly sing like that. What the heck do you expect them to do? Come up with a brand new voice. Now, in Johnny's case, he definitely has played it up, but for years there's been a knee-jerk reaction from audiences to shut down anyone who remotely sounds like Alex Turner whilst they sing. It's not their fault they have a northern accent. And as for Johnny's voice itself, I think range-wise, it's actually better quality than Alex's was during those early days. Johnny can hit more notes than Alex could back then, and is capable of more melodic tunes than Turner was. However, none can replicate the tone Alex had in the early days. The tone was definitely the strength of Turner's voice back then, if not the range. That's really just like my opinion. So, are the Reytons the new Arctic Monkeys? No, they're not. It wouldn't be good for them to think of themselves in such a way, nor would it be good for audiences to go in with that approach. If fans are going in with that mindset, it will limit the Reytons as a band and switch off a lot of potential listeners by poisoning the well. If that's what people hear when they listen to the Reytons, it's not to their credit. Hearing similarities is great. Hearing a blatant rip-off diluted through corny lyrical tropes is not. Regardless, I see the story of the Reytons as somewhat inspirational. Every step of the way, Reytons have come up against disbelievers and detractors. They've stayed independent and put together some quality music and had large audiences going absolutely wild for them. They indeed took advantage of the gap in the market that Arctic Monkeys have left for a few years now to come up. But as they've grown out of that phase musically, they've shown more and more promise as their own unique outfit. I'll be really interested to see what they do next. Thanks for watching this Music Mark video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're interested in these sorts of musical topics. I'll see you in the next one.